you to bleed for me.
Good evening, everybody. We are back. That's right. 2 very long weeks without talking to this fine camera here with my buddy, Eric Reese. Eric, how was your holiday? Thanksgiving.
I lost my hair. There's that.
See that?
I don't know. Maybe I had this haircut the last time we were on here. I'm not quite sure. It's been so long, right? You know, the days sort of all run together. The turkey hit hard on me, not necessarily for the Flyers. They got their their first Black Friday win against the Rangers in quite some time. But nonetheless, man, the holidays were good. Fiance is doing all right with her wrist surgery. I'm dodging traffic, sort of. I'll say that as far as that Pennsylvania is concerned.
Not dodging you.
Well, I have to dodge it sometimes, and sometimes it might catch up to me, which it did. So here we are. Nonetheless, we're all right. The gang is all back tonight.
The gang is back tonight, and I'm about to hit you with some breaking news.
Okay.
Not about the Philadelphia Flyers, but about a former Philadelphia Flyer. The Chicago Blackhawks, according to reports, have fired head coach Luke Richardson. Done in Chicago. Done coaching Connor Bedard. Your thoughts?
I wonder, immediately your thoughts go to like who's going to be the guy that goes in to kind of take on that role. It's definitely a rebuild still, right? I mean, it's not much different than the Flyer situation. You know, we have our Bedard now and Michkov. So, a lot of people.
So for context, last in the Central, 8-16-2, 18 points on the season. So definitely struggling there over in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's you're kind of looking for one of those coaches who can teach the team to play the right way, not just one or two particular people. It's a team effort, and I think that's again like kind of comparing to what we have in Philly with John Tortorella. I do believe that he actually is a pretty decent coach for a rebuild, and a lot of people will disagree with that. We've seen it everywhere. Mm-hmm. But I'd imagine that Chicago Blackhawks are going to start looking for a coach that sort of mimics what Philadelphia did over time. Now, as long as you have a coach and you do a coach search, you're going to have to match that with the front office as well. So, we'll see where this goes.
So former Flyer Luke Richardson, once again, out as head coach, according to reports over there in Chicago. But we've returned our attention back here to Philadelphia. And Eric, the Flyers are hot. 7-2-1 over their last 10, 12, 10, 3, 27 points, which is good for 5th place in a Metro. And would you look at that, tied with the New York Rangers for 4th and 5th place in the Metro. As you mentioned, the only they came up with a massive win in that annual Black Friday game, and really the only game in the last 2 weeks they didn't take to overtime, which is impressive in and of itself, and we'll run through that schedule in a second. But just overall for the Philadelphia Flyers and that streak that they've been on, mind you, without their starting netminder Sam Ersson, who's been out, who's practicing, almost ready to come back, will not play tonight, but is ready to come back into the fold. And it was the backups that everybody had questions about that basically stemmed the tide. They got the house in order, so to speak, and both Kolosov and Fedotov both really stepped up and helped the Flyers over these last 10 games.
I'm going to be joining you in saying Fedotov, so it's absolutely okay. But this is a kind of a good situation that one that was terrifying at first, and I think the backup goaltenders, Kolosov, Fedotov, however you want to say it. I know I just flipped the script on you a little bit. They've kind of calibrated very quickly. They've figured out how to adjust in the NHL level. Now, some of what you see from Fedotov is he's sort of having a hard time tracking the puck when there's traffic in front of him. I think that's something that's going to come to him slowly but surely, and I think it's a little bit different, right? From a guy who's huge, and it's a little bit of a different aspect and different way of like trying to trace the puck when you're a smaller goaltender and you have to actually look around and things like that. I think it's just little technique things, but nonetheless, you can't really argue with the results. In his last 5 games for Fedotov, he's 3-1-1 with let me see if I remember all this correctly, with a 90.1 save percentage and a 3, I think, even goals against, something close to that. So just part of the preview that I wrote earlier.
That's the magic mark in hockey, that 900 save percentage.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you're kind of looking for. I mean, for the most part of his sample size in the NHL, it's largely below that 90%. So in the last 5 games, you're hoping that, this is something that's going to be consistent. But yeah, the 3-1-1, you're getting the points for the most parts with Fedotov. You're getting the points. You're starting to get the points at least. With Kolosov, it's a team effort. You're starting to have what you thought were 3 goaltenders that were unproven and probably leaky in the nets. And they're turning out to be, a 3 goaltender system when Ersson is when he does return. That's probably going to be for the better for Philadelphia. So it's a good problem to have.
If you would have told me when we were recording episode 3 that the Flyers would be back into a playoff position for episode 10, yeah, you would have straight up told me I was crazy. That the Flyers would have gone on this kind of a run to be able to get themselves back into things before. For me, I thought it was going to be probably January was the last time that they are able to really get their, again, I used it already, get their house in order to really get those points that they needed, because they dropped a lot of early points in the early part of the season. Me being a math nerd, I'd always do the math, and they picked up an 8% jump in the standings, which is relatively unheard of over the course of 9 points out of a possible 10 points in their last 5 games. So it's been pretty impressive, and the most important thing is what you saw when you clicked on that banner, and that's Matvei Michkov, and something that you kind of mentioned in our chat with the resiliency of the Philadelphia Flyers and the fact that they are just not a team that you want to let hang around, because there's probably a better than average chance right now that they're going to find a way to tie the game and at least get it to overtime.
If the Flyers can get you into an overtime situation, I do believe that this isn't a matter of luck or random, and there is some sort of truth to this. The players that Tortorella is putting out there, which mostly consist, at least their first 3 mostly consist of Sanheim, Konechny, and Michkov. They're finishers. They're guys that 2 of them are on the 4 nations. So we're putting guys out there who are fantastic at what they do, finishing and back. And honestly, 2 to 3 are pretty good at back checking. I know that Tortorella is making that sink in with Michkov a little bit more about where he needs to be in back checking and just kind of being ready to defend in case a shot goes wide, what have you. But for the most part, I don't think I would want to go to battle with many other trios than those 3. And I think at the end of the day here, that the Philadelphia Flyers, they could be one of the best teams built for the 3-on-3 format when you go into an overtime period.
It definitely helps when he's picking up points. But one of the more impressive parts of Matvei Michkov's game of the last, probably say 10 games or so, has been the fact that he's gotten his season average back up to dead even in the plus minus ratio. And for anyone that isn't aware, hockey stats, plus minus will essentially determine, or is the ratio of when you're on the ice, 5-on-5, even strength, the other team scores against your line. That's essentially what that stat is. There's a lot of people that rely heavily on it, and if you're a minus, you had a terrible game. Not exactly how it goes. However, if a player is -5, -10, -15, etc., you can make a least solid guesstimate that they're struggling defensively, or that their line is struggling defensively, and it's just not the line to put out there. So with Michka, a bunch of different line mates, was getting scored on a lot early on. So the fact that now 2 months into his NHL career, he's back up to an even plus minus is pretty impressive. Just to the effort that he's put into the defensive side of the puck this early on in the season.
So I guess in terms of that, what you just said right there, what do you feel about Michkov as far as him returning to the lineup after he was scratched for 2 games? Is it something that was to his detriment, like a lot of people feared, or what did it actually help his even strength 5-on-5 game?
Because I think it was incredibly helpful.
Yes.
I think it was absolutely incredibly helpful, and I was somebody that was in favor of it at the time.
Right.
And just saying that it would allow him to see the game from the different level, and it's not something that you're going to replicate in Game 5 of the preseason. That type of speed's not there. There's going to be another learning curve come February or March or April, and I would not be absolutely stunned. And you can bookmark this. You can do whatever you want. December 5th. There's probably going to be a time come March or April where Michov's going to get scratched again, because the NHL game speed goes up another notch, especially after all of these players get back from the 4 nations where they just competed their heart out. And it's like, all right, cool. Now it's NHL playoff time. If my team's not in it, let's get them in it. And if you are in it, you're going to be scratching and clawing to stay in it, because it's going to be a fight. We saw it come down to the end of the season last year in the Metro. And you're going to see it again this year, because if you look at the standing, it's another dogfight.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And you hit it right on the head. If he is, scratched another time this season, it will probably be, right after the All-Star break or a little bit after the All-Star break, because that's when, it's kind of like the NBA. When people in the NBA, they say, oh, the regular season doesn't matter. It's about the playoffs. Well, it's like, okay, well, it matters to an extent, right? Because you have to make the playoffs. Well, the teams that are making the playoffs and making that postseason push, they're the ones that can check the best in the NHL. So that's what it's going to come down to. If the checking isn't there, you can make a solid bet that a coach like John Tortorella is going to make sure it's there, and is going to send that message to you. And maybe you don't like your ice time so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tortorella is not somebody that's afraid to pull those punches and do what he needs to do to kind of coach the team. We have 45 minutes almost until the Flyers take on the Panthers there in South Philadelphia, Wells Fargo Center. The reigning, defending Stanley Cup champion, Florida Panthers. Still sounds weird.
You want to know?
Congratulations to Florida.
You want to know a fun fact about them?
Go ahead.
They have the most representatives of any NHL team in the 4 nations face-off. 8.
Fascinating. 8 representatives, and there's 4 countries, so that's doing pretty good. Unfortunately, the guy, the jersey over here, he's not going to be there tonight. He's in Florida with his wife. From what I heard, I haven't looked too deeply into it, but I know he wasn't there at practice, because one of the coolest things about Flyers practice, a couple of times the opponents have showed up for a practice before game time. We've had Washington, we've had Minnesota, and now we had Florida. And the chance to have the opportunity to watch Matthew Tkachuk, Alex Barkov. I was looking for Bob. I got to see Spencer Knight and Chris Drager. Poor Chris Drager. If you check out my social media, cheap plug at CBabos Writes on Twitter and CBabos Writes on Blue Sky. There's a video I put out during practice. Chris Drager puts the puck in his own net, and his team gave him all kinds of crap for it, because, I mean, obviously it's a mistake. But it was one of those things that I got on video, and I was like, wait a minute, did I just see that? Wait, did I just record that as well? That's awesome. So it was one of those things that I always geek out when I have the opportunity to see NHL stars up close.
Unfortunately, that does not count as a goalie goal. It's an own goal.
It does not. But it's probably the worst way to score, you would think, because with those goalies, they're pretty steadfast about not letting that puck get across that line. So Sticking with that before we get into the quick rundown of last week's action weekly highlight. I always like to touch on something. I'm going to stick with the practice theme. Y'all are lucky I showed up here because I almost died from cuteness overload on Wednesday. Yesterday, Wednesday. Travis Konechny had his kids at practice, his young kids. Like, I don't know exactly how old or young they are. They're both under like 3 or 4, something in that range. TK brought his kid out on the ice after practice was done. Couldn't skate yet, but Konechny's holding him up, guiding him along the ice. Little short stick, little kid just swipes a puck into the net. Everybody cheers. One of the absolute cutest things I've ever seen. So I didn't really want to share any photos or videos because that's not my place. That's his family and whatnot. So out of respect for him, I didn't really want to do that. But I absolutely wanted to talk about it here because it was one of the coolest things that I've gotten to see, and it's a chance to remind people that these are human beings,
Yes,
lives just like us. That's sometimes very easy to forget.
Yeah, it's in a world where it could be full of hot takes, and I'm not excluding myself because I've definitely had some, but you do kind of get these moments, if you will, where you do see the players with their family, and at times, like I had the opportunity when Drew was finishing his time in Philadelphia, and it was his kids that were around pretty often, and you see them when they're coming to home games, on mostly that welcome back. The first time he was back with Ottawa, there was you get to see these moments, and it's always just this wholesome and adorable, and it's definitely, like you said, a opportunity for to kind of remember, like, hey, these aren't just elite athletes doing their craft, on a nightly basis. These are people, sort of like you and me. I mean, definitely better skaters and better athletes, things of that nature. But nonetheless, father, exactly. So yeah. So it is a nice reminder. It's always a wonderful sight to see.
The other cool thing is if you ever get the chance to go to the Flyers practice at Flyers Training Center, which for people that aren't aware are free and open to the public if you happen to be available during the day, because that is when they happen. What is Fedotov is absolutely one of the goofiest people I've ever seen on the ice. I've gotten pictures of him just sprawled out being goofy. He could let 5-6 pucks go right past him. He makes one big save. He has that glove. He's got the glove waving in people's face. Just one of those things that, again, things that you don't necessarily get to see during the game, kind of occur there. And it's a nice insight into Flyers hockey, essentially.
No, absolutely. That's what practice is for. If you let a few go by, you get hype about the one that you save, and then you keep it going and build on that. That's what goaltending. Hell, I mean, there's a good correlation between that and, like, being an NFL quarterback. You throw a bad ball, easy memory, and you go to the next good one. So yeah, that's what practice was for. And I like seeing a guy like Kolosov not really letting that, not Kolosov. I apologize, Fedotov. Not letting that live rent free in his head, because as a goaltender, it is a huge mental, concept to that position.
Before we get into the recap from last week, I have to give out a shout out to my co-producer from the Still Processing A6ers podcast, Kylie from PSN. Mostly because if I don't, we will never hear the end of it. So thanks for listening, Kai. We definitely appreciate you checking in. Flyers last week, excellent week, 3-0-1. I already mentioned 9 out of 10 points in the standings, several home wins, which was not the case early in the season. So of course, it's the games that you don't get to watch. Kind of figures how they decide to win when you're not there. But we've got the first game we'll start with right before the holiday. Connor Bedard, Matvei Michkov's first NHL meeting, 3-2 overtime win for the Philadelphia Flyers. Sean Couturier, Noah Cates scoring the third to tie it. Matvei Michkov with the overtime game-winning goal. We both split these predictions. I said that Frost would play. I'm correct there with the 4-1 win. You had a Michkov goal. A 4-2 win for the Philadelphia Flyers. Eric, as you're gonna find out, you had a pretty stellar week last week.
Oh my God. It's funny
you
for a guy
did.
who never can remember his own predictions, but fantastic. It was stellar. All right.
You did. I write them down as you say them, or at least I tried to. You did pretty well last week. So, what are your takeaways from that win against Chicago?
God, I mean, obviously, it was just the Michkov versus Bedard storyline. So 1-0 Michkov at the end of the day there. But really, my takeaway has less to do with the actual game itself and more to do with the concept of, people in Philadelphia. Like, if you go and you just wear the jersey, like I went to a concert that night at Franklin Music Hall. I'm going to go see the Dillinger Escape Plan play with their original lineup for the most part. And so if anybody knows that band, it's a punk rock band, metal band. So it's a little niche crowd. But yeah, I can't tell you how many people just like came up to me just because I was just like kind of like standing alone in the back, waiting for the bands to go on, just rocking out, whatever, listening to them. And there was about 3 or 4, maybe 5 groups, people that came up to me. I had 1 or 2 beers, so God forbid if I keep a number, but they come up to you and they're like, "Oh, I was watching the game earlier," and like because you see me wearing a Mishkov jersey because I got ahead of it, just like probably most of the Philadelphia Flyers fans, and you do start to realize that I've had nobody come up to me, and this is granted, I don't really I don't really do much about basketball and the Sixers. I have a jersey, but I rarely do I wear it. I mean, if I do wear it, I'm probably going to a game with my nephew. So like he's a big basketball guy, and I'll just turn into a basketball guy. So yeah, you had a bunch of people coming up to you and they want to talk to you about Flyers and stuff like that, and it's just fantastic to see that there is like sort of vital signs in the fan base here that they want to talk about it. And I think that game, this is the one that starts another 5-game point streak at the end of the day here. So to start off a 5-game point streak and kind of see the people who want to approach and talk to you about Flyers hockey, that was really my takeaway from that game outside of the win itself.
And the most impressive part to me about that is this is before this team returns to the playoffs for the first time in it's 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we're in the middle right now.
4 years since 2020. So
I think this is the longest drought of not making the postseason in Flyers history. We're currently in it. So yeah, for there to kind of be for you to see the vital signs of that, it's a little bit of a special thing right now.
It's pretty lovely to see. So 2 nights later, the Flyers, their only loss in this stretch of games, they fall 5-4 to the Vegas Golden Knights at home at Wells Fargo Center. Emil Andrae picks up his first NHL goal. The Flyers let a 3-0 lead slip away before a 5-4 shootout loss. Matvei Michkov did pick up his 8th goal of the season, but you can't let those big leads slip away. We'll touch on that in a moment. Once again, I swung and missed. Forster goal did not happen. I also had a 3-2 overtime win, so I got the overtime. So I'll give myself, I guess, 0.5. But yeah, you had a Fedotov start. Unfortunately, you had your goalies flip-flop for the first 2 games.
Yep.
And then a York goal also didn't happen, but you did have a 3-1 win. That's also didn't happen. So 0-2 on that one was the only day you struck out.
Yeah, that was one that in watching it, I was like 3-0 Flyers. Like they really came out to play. Like it's, I wasn't expecting this by any means. I really, even if you predicted a win, I don't think anybody expected the Flyers to go 3-0 on Vegas.
It was quick too. It was the first, I think they had 2 in the first like 12 minutes or something of that nature.
Yeah, Frost and Couturier, 12 minutes and 7 seconds. Both of those goals came in. But but as soon as that lead started to dwindle even a little bit, and I think Matvei put him back up by a goal or maybe 2 at one point, there was a part of me that was like, man, like, and this goes on in the Flyers Nation chat a little bit. There was some, I'm not going to out who said it, but they were like, oh, this is going to
pitchforks.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is going to suck when the Flyers lose this game, and they're still up like 4-2 or whatever it was at the time. And I was like thinking to myself, like, you can't just say that. You can't just say that and welcome it in. Then, then it happens, and then it hurts exactly the way that it was put in the chat. So
that gets
I'm
an
not
immediate
out the person, but bad juju.
That's an immediate. Don't you bring that evil on me, Ricky? Bobby,
yes,
from me instantly. Like, no, you don't bring that evil on me. either way, the Flyers did get the point in the game, which ultimately was important as they moved forward. Again, 2 nights later, they travel. I always forget that Nashville, Tennessee is as close as it is because the Titans in the NFL are AFC, the Nashville Predators are Western Conference, Memphis Grizzly, nobody really cares about, honestly, at least in Philadelphia. So, like, I always forget that Nashville is not that far away. But the Flyers had to travel to Nashville. They picked up a 3-2 win in Tennessee. Morgan Frost tied it with 12 seconds left. Couturier with the game-winning goal, his 6th of the year. I said Michkov would score twice. Didn't happen. I did have a 5-1 win. You had a 3-1 win, which is where we sit after that third game of this set.
I guess my question here is, why is Nashville a Western Conference team?
It had to be when the expansion happened.
So just to kind of balance it out, I guess this is a balancing act. Okay, because because geographically speaking, no.
No, no. You would figure their biggest rival should be Carolina, but
yeah, or something along the lines of that.
Carolina. So
right,
I don't know, man.
Yeah, you saying that, I never really thought of it, so it kind of blows my mind. I was at a Friendsgiving for this one, so I kind of half paid attention, and then I saw the fireworks at the very end there with what was it, Morgan Frost and
Frost
and Couturier,
which is a big goal from Morgan Frost.
Yeah,
just on the season he's had.
He gets his confidence back a little bit. That's what we're looking for here.
Absolutely.
And then Couturier dang near does a cartwheel. I mean, that was
almost. Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that was. It was a controlled. No, it's definitely not a controlled.
I was about to say it was a little bit terrifying. I hope nobody tries that. And don't try it at home. Don't try it in an empty rink. I don't care. Just don't try it. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, it would be kind of dope as a celebration in like NHL, but don't do that.
I just want to see TK pull out the worm. Scores, he just starts doing the worm.
That actually would be fire.
They could. I think he would have. They definitely have the core strength. So, Black Friday, the Flyers take on the New York Rangers in a very surprising, relatively convincing 3-1 victory. They outshot New York 35-23. 2 goals for Travis Konecny, including the empty netter. I predicted Ersan would be back. He's not quite back yet, so that missed. I also had a 4-2 loss. Did not believe. Eric Reese, you were a believer. 3-2 win. You didn't have it not bang on, but you had the win against the New York Rangers.
This is a team that, and I know that people were maybe just starting to realize it. Maybe I wasn't the only one, but I did start to kind of realize the New York Rangers drift a little bit. It started with the biggest clue in for me was Mika not really having the season that we expect. Known Flyers killer Mika Zibanejad. So
Mika Zibanejad, yeah.
Yeah, so he just it hasn't been there. And who did they have in Shesterkin? Shesterkin was not Shesterkin. I mean, I think some people were starting to see
the season with a contract situation. I just don't think he ever settled into the season.
But isn't that how it kind of goes with goaltenders in these contract situations? They kind of are waiting that out, then maybe they don't live up to it. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just a couple things.
You miss a lot of playing time, and then all of a sudden you're at a certain level, and your team's at a different level because they've been practicing for 3 weeks more. It's just kind of how I think that ends up playing out.
Either way, the Flyers came out there. They looked like a team that had a point, to be there. And I know that Rangers fans, as they do all the time on Black Friday, they travel well and they kind of full on invade. For the first time in some long time, it was fantastic to know that they were probably out there full-on invading. Thank you for your money, New York Rangers, because you came and watched your team lose live and in color. I'm sorry, that's rude. Happy Thanksgiving.
Come back next week for more insults.
But no, it was a fantastic win, though, honestly.
Yeah, it was definitely a good win for the Flyers, and one that when you look back in the season, we'll see how it ends up for the New York Rangers, but they're expected to be in that playoff race as long as they right that ship up there in New York. Very next night, St. Louis Blues welcomed the Philadelphia Flyers, and you know what, Eric? It was another overtime game. Would you believe that? A 3-2 win, second night of a back-to-back. A big performance for Kolosov. 926 save percentage. He made 25 saves, was the first star of the game. And then, of course, it was capped off by, yet again, Matvey Michkov Magic, his 8th goal of the season with the overtime game winner. I had a Brink goal. It did not happen. I did have a 3-2 win. As you did, 3-2 win for the Philadelphia Flyers. And you also called the Tyson Forrester goal. So good finish there for the week for you as the Flyers pick up that big victory out in St. Louis.
More than the Mishkov goal, I'm just happy that Forrester, has 2 points in the last 2 games. I mean, if he gets another one tonight, which maybe when we get to those predictions later, I'll say my prediction on that. But if he does get another one tonight, I think that's evidence that Forrester is kind of finding his groove again, which is what Tortorella has been saying. Like, listen, it hasn't been the start like last season. But nonetheless, he's still his 5-on-5 play is still there. That line has been buzzing over the last 2 games. I think it continues tonight against a very good team, by the way.
If they were to trade Tyson Forrester, that would be a mistake because I
definitely don't want
watching him play. I think he has a lot of skill, and I think he's still just scratching the surface of that skill. For being a younger 20s player that yes, you have an idea of what he's going to be, but man, that shot at practice will wake somebody that's sleeping with how loud that thing is.
It's one of the reasons why he was, drafted where he was in the first round. He had probably one of the best shots in that entire draft class. And I know that we keep saying that. And one of the things that you probably seen, for the most part, everybody's seen at the NHL level is his puck protection. I think that part, is kind of balancing out with his, at least his offense is probably balancing out with his puck protection and 5-on-5 play. So we could see that after the first quarter of this season, that Forrester's maybe starting to construct his game a little bit.
I personally would love to say it. I think he definitely has a big opportunity in this top 6. 30 minutes to go before the Philadelphia Flyers battle the Florida Panthers at the Wells Fargo Center. We'll take you close to game time, maybe not right up to it, but thereabouts. We have 100 people in here live according to the YouTube stream here. So thank you very much for sticking with us. We know there's a lot of options there for your pregame information and your pregame Flyers talk. So the fact that you decided to stick with us here at PSN and shoot another Flyers show, I can't tell you how much I personally appreciate it. I won't speak for Eric, but I'm pretty sure he appreciates it.
I appreciate it. Don't worry. Don't you worry a little bit. I appreciate it all the same.
Speaking of appreciation, a couple of Flyers getting appreciated by their countries. That's right. The 4 nations representatives in February, Canada selects Travis Konecny and Travis Sanheim. The Travi collectively will head north of the border. Well, yeah, it's north of the border because it starts in Montreal. We'll head north of the border for the 4 nations, along with, for some, a surprising Rasmus Ristolainen for Finland, rather. Let's try that again. Rasmus Ristolainen for Finland, who becomes one of the defensive pairings for that team. And there's only going to be 4 teams in this tournament. Yes. If you're not familiar, it replaces the NHL All-Star Game this year. The United States, Canada, Finland, Sweden. Typically speaking, outside of Russia, the 4 powerhouse nations in the hockey world, at least over the last 10, 20 years or so. So it should be a very interesting tournament. Overall, I believe there's going to be 7 games that culminate in a championship matchup between 2 of those countries and massive bragging rights before all the teams, all the players head back to their NHL teams.
There's 2 sites. I know the championship games and a couple ones before it are in Boston. Where it's the other ones are in
I believe
Canada,
Montreal.
Right?
I believe it starts in Montreal and then it comes to Boston to finish. I believe.
Okay. Yep. I look. I mean, this concept is something that I'm really excited for. Is the best players taking on the best players, and representing their countries. In addition, by the way, to Konecny and Sanheim and Ristolainen, John Tortorella will be the assistant coach for the United States. So there's 4 representatives, 3 on the ice, 1 on the bench for Philadelphia. Um, I don't know. I guess I want to go down the ideas of where they would probably end up in the lines and the pairings as far as these guys, because I think at the end of the day here, Konechny is obviously, even for Canada, I think he's a top six
He should
winger
be.
based on the season that he's having, and I think that I'll go out and say it. And this might be a little bit controversial, but I think Sanheim's a top four pairing.
Oh, absolutely.
But there are some people that sit there and say, "Oh, well, you'd be, if you would be, if you're objective, because this has happened to me." Shout out to McCagg, who who found me on Blue Sky, and he goes, "If you're being objective, Sanheim would be a 5 or a 7 on Canada." Which I think that's that's off. I don't think that's.
I think that's
at all.
underselling his 5-on-5 skills, but I mean, I can understand the argument.
I think that undersells the way that he's evolved this season. If you were to sit there and tell me 2 seasons ago, if this happened, for sure, probably makes the roster, bottom pair 7th, fine. But right now, I don't think that. I don't think with the people that were selected for Team Canada, I think that Sanheim could be a anywhere between a 3 to a 5, and a 5 is that worst case scenario.
And that's touching on what you mentioned with just this season for Travis Sanheim. 25 games played, 5 goals scored, 10 assists, 15 points. He is a +1 on this team, but the eye-popping stat, he's 4th in the league in time on ice this season behind Columbus's Zach Werenski, who's averaging 26 minutes of ice time with very little help out there in Columbus in the defensive unit. Travis Sanheim has had some help, a little bit, has also had to deal with some injuries that have seen him get a lot more ice time than Tortorella would rather prefer to give him, I would think. But the fact that he can skate 25 and a half minutes of ice time in a game is putting him in that situation where he has got to be considered at least a 1 and 2 at the NHL level. And I think he's knocking on that door of a 3 or 4 for Canada.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that assessment. I mean, especially on the Flyers, in no world is he not a top pair. I mean, obviously he is. He's been that all year. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day here, when we do consider the success of the Flyers, you consider the amount of time that he's had on the ice with the injuries. According to what it's been Drysdale, it's been New York who's been out, things like that. He's paired with Ristolainen. Ristolainen's looked great with him. He earned his role on Finland.
Absolutely.
And that sort of aspect as well. I've been somebody who's been loud and obnoxious and critical of Ristolainen. And by the way, Ristolainen's en route to have one of the best balanced seasons of his entire career, if not the best balanced season of his entire career. So, yeah, I mean, I look at these guys and the way that they've contributed to this Flyers team. Now, the Flyers at one point lost, 6 games in a row? And they look like they were, dead in the water real fast. Next thing you know, they're in the bargain hunt right now of a wild card spot. And I think it has a lot to do, even to the success and credit of these goaltenders. It has a lot to do with the improvements that the defense is making in front of them. And shout out to Ristolainen and Sanheim for that.
Yeah, no, the defensive improvements have definitely gone a long way toward helping just kind of settle things down in front of these goaltenders, because realistically, while everyone's like, the goalies are struggling, and they were, it was almost just as much the defensive play in front of them that was causing a bunch of issues. And then all of a sudden, as a goalie, you can't make a mistake. And when you can't make a mistake, you're bound to make more mistakes, because that's just the way life works. At least,
and also a quick shout out to Tortorella. Like, I know there's a lot of people who have been very, very, they've harped on Tortorella. Oh, he's he's not a good a coach for a rebuild and all of this. I think this in a lot of ways kind of shuts down that argument, because amongst his peers, he's still one of the better minds in the NHL, and he is a guy that's said, all right, I understand there's a ton to work on. It's going to take a few years, but the team is trending in the right direction again. And he has a track record of that. and Philadelphia is no different. So that means that Tortorella has been more and more so a success story in his career in the NHL, and that's whether you had the knowledge of him winning the Stanley Cup previously or not. Just look at his time on the teams that he hasn't won a Stanley Cup on. Those teams still, for the most part, have trended in the right direction. Until eventually you move on to a different team, and you maybe if you lose the room, whatever it is. Those things will happen with coaches, but Tortorella, I think, has the team still playing for him in Philadelphia. I think this has been a perfect fit for him since he's been here, and I think it's still continuing to prove so. And by the way, him and Sullivan back together again, and for for USA. I mean, that's that just makes me excited to watch USA versus Canada, honestly. So I mean,
so I'm going to put you on the spot though.
Okay, go ahead.
Who do you pull for? Do you pull for USA there? Or do you pull for your Flyers reps in Canada?
Well, I mean, you got to pull for your country, so USA. I know it's a dumb answer, right? Like,
it's not. I don't know. We could have lit up the internet if you would have.
I do want to say this. I'm excited about Tortorella's answer because Tortorella basically said along the lines of a question and after practice, are you gonna how to play you coach Sanheim and Konechny. Are you going to give away any secrets? He's like, I don't know how many secrets I have, but I'm going to be, playing against them pretty hard. I'm playing for my country. He's coaching for his country. So, if there's anybody who knows how to prepare against, obviously their own team, this is, I think, on the opposite end after 4 Nations is only going to make Sanheim and Konechny better. So you of, as a Flyers fan, even if you are, even if you're a Canadian that likes the Flyers, you probably are hoping that, Tortorella gets his team in there very hard against, Team Canada, because you want to see those guys turn the corner in the NHL.
I learned a very valuable lesson, and that's be ready at the start of practice. Before everything came out on Monday, they started practice, and it was some of the loudest cheers that I've heard from the Philadelphia Flyers amongst their group. There were 3 of them, and I was like, okay, that was different. That was cool. I wish I had video of it. Oh, well, I missed it. That's fine. You go to the presser after the practice, and the media goes and asks him, hey, I saw you congratulating everyone, and I love the sly answer that Tortorella gives. He's like, I didn't hear anything. Did you guys hear anything? Everybody knew at that point. It just hadn't been officially released yet. But he's like, I didn't hear anything. But it was awesome to really see just the support that the teammates gave those 3 guys, and how much they were pulling for them to get those invites, and how much that means. It was really cool to see. All right, let's next topic we had was Emil Andrae. Emil Andrae has been nothing short of a revelation since he's been called up from the AHL in 15 games. 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. He's a +4. He hasn't taken too many penalties, got 8 penalty minutes. And Eric, he's skating almost 20 minutes a night as a rookie. And it's because he's playing that well. He's deserving of those minutes.
The top 4 is set in Philadelphia.
One more time?
The top 4 is set in Philadelphia.
Okay. That's what I thought I heard.
Yeah. It's, I think this Emil Andrae, Rasmus Ristolainen combo is, it's weird that I'm going to say it like this, but I'm only saying it because it's something that's, within the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. Like, remember when Provorov was on the team? And you had Matt Niskanen, and everybody was like, well, you need the 1A to 1B. Well, this second pair on that kind of talent level is a 1A to 1B. I think they balance each other out. And and obviously, York and Sanheim, they're fantastic with one another up top, and they're honestly playing a larger role than just left and right top pair defensemen. So that this top 4 is set in Philadelphia. Emil Andrae's done a fantastic job. I think he took everybody by surprise with how NHL ready he was. Shout out to Eric Johnson for being that mentor early on, and then shout out to Bradshaw and Tortorella for letting them
This is going to get some hate. Shout out Ian LaPerriere.
For sure.
The coach
Actually, yeah.
Of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, who helped get him ready for NHL duty.
Yeah, there's a lot of defensemen that are coming up from the Phantoms that are shown they can play at the NHL level. So, also included in that shout out Helge Grans.
Helge Grans, who got returned back. So mostly he can get some playing times. He held up very well in his short stint. It was more of the numbers game with the goalies coming back and whatnot that sent him back to the American League.
So to piggyback off that point, and I don't know if you were about to go to this, but what do you do with the bottom pair? Sealer obviously stays. Mm-hmm. You're probably not going to include, Erik Johnson more than what you need to. So it really comes down to this: Zamula or Jamie Drysdale, or do you kind of reconsider Helge Grans? And to do that, you have to move something or other.
I think if somebody gets moved, they got to reconsider Helge Grans. Realistically, when it comes down to it, I think Jamie Drysdale is who they want on that third pairing, just from potential upside, just from trying to really uncover what's there, and if he can work in the NHL level defensively, because his offensive skills, at least the skating portion of his game anyway, can translate for sure. So when you look at it from that aspect of things, there's definitely a logjam. But Zamula's an important member of that locker room, more than I think a lot of people might realize, just because of the whole connection with Michkov, with Fedotov, that even if he hangs around as a 7th, 8th defenseman and isn't playing a ton, I still think he sticks around just because I feel the organization will reward him for what he's done this summer, honestly.
Yeah, I do believe that, at the end of this season, Erik Johnson, he's only on for 1 year. So, he's done. And unless he goes at the deadline to somebody else, which I don't think is going to happen, I think they'll probably hold on to an Erik Johnson.
If somebody blows them away and is like, I 5th, 6th round pick or something like that, like, hey, we really want the veteran experience, then you don't turn that down. But otherwise,
that is fair, because you probably do well by, like Torts is probably going to do well by Johnson and say, hey, yeah, sure, the Flyers could make a postseason push just to get a berth. Mm-hmm. But if a trade comes around to a team that can contend and compete for a cup, probably does that, does good by the player. Now, obviously, that's not a Torts move. That's a Briere move. But nonetheless, I think they kind of combine for that reasoning and the logic. Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been a little vocal about it. I do kind of think that, you probably aren't wanting Drysdale to be on your bottom pair. You probably want Drysdale.
No, that's not a long-term solution. That's
so. What's the long-term solution? Do you start to move Drysdale and try and you play him and see who offers and bites? Combined and push.
I've said since the beginning of the season, since I've kind of seen where Drysdale and hearing Tortorella talk about him, that I didn't ever really think this season was the make or break for him. I think next season and kind of where he develops on the defensive side, I think that takes a full NHL season at least for him to kind of understand what the Flyers and what Torts are really looking for out of him, because he played a completely different style in Anaheim. So I think that's one of those things that, no, ideally you want him more on than that 6th pair, but also the way John Tortorella and Bradshaw run their defense, you might be listed as 5th, 6th defenseman, but you might still get 13 minutes, 14, 15 minutes in that game, depending upon how it's going. So I think, and again, if there's a situation where Drysdale's in the lineup and the Flyers have 6 power plays, then he's going to probably have 11 minutes of ice time just because. Right. So, I mean, I think there's ways that they could work with it. I don't think it's ideal, but it's ideal from the aspect of sheltering him defensively and giving him a good defensive player like Nick Sealer to work off of is the best they can do right
No, that's 100% true, and I will say, part of the reason why I'm a little bit critical about this is because I do know what he can do in the power play.
Mhm.
Last year, and last year is last year, so I'm not going to try to correlate it too hard. But Zambola led the team in power play points as far as defense goes. So my thing is, how much stock do you put into the power play versus the stock that's not necessarily there 5-on-5? Because I think there needs to be a healthy balance. And if one has to be out, I'm putting more stock into the 5-on-5 than probably the power play.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely need to put more stock in the power play. I mean, or I'm sorry, in the 5-on-5 play, because you can't rely on somebody and just their power play skills, because you might not get a power play in the game. And then at that point, what are you really trying to do? With that being said, though, I think Jamie Drysdale is a glacier. He's an iceberg. We don't really know what's under that top 15% that
Right.
we've seen here in Philadelphia yet, that we've even seen in the NHL, honestly. I really don't think we yet know what he's capable of, because so much been thrown at this kid between getting drafted, going to the NHL, honestly being forced into the Ducks lineup, then injuries. So like, they start training him, they start teaching him up, and then you get hurt and you go away in rehab. And it's not like you're on the ice reinforcing all of those things that they've been teaching you. That kind of goes away a little bit, at least as far as I'm aware, when you're injured, so that when you do come back and you're ramping back up and you get healthy again, but now you're relearning all of the things that they want you to do, because you haven't had a chance to reinforce that in practice, because you haven't been healthy enough to practice.
I mean, here's a wild idea because of his health, but do you think he would agree to a rehab stint in Lehigh Valley? Because he would have to.
I mean, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. Especially if they get one of those AHL schedules. It was like, oh, hey, they're playing, Friday and Saturday night in Lehigh. You can go get 2 games and skate and play some. That's where I could see him being like, you know what, okay, I could see that. But I think it really comes down to whether or not he and or the coaches really feel like that's something he needs to do.
That's
I don't
absolutely
think
true.
it's a bad move. I think any games for Drysdale at this point is a bonus. Or not necessarily a bonus, is good for his development.
Absolutely true. Just we're waiting for him to be healthy again, cleared to return, and then I guess we'll have a better idea of what actually happens. We're all just kind of spitballing here. But
Absolutely.
nonetheless, like you said, I do agree. There's a lot to uncover about him, and what he has to offer at the NHL level. It's just unfortunately that health, and he returned healthy, ready with the clean build this year, and we're kind of getting the same news. So it's hard to kind of figure out what it is. What exactly is the mystery of Jamie Drysdale?
And speaking of Jamie Drysdale, unfortunately, his buddy Trevor Zegras in Anaheim got hurt last night. Last night or the other night. I don't know the extent of the injury, but I know he was helped off the ice, and that'll put a bit of those damper on all of those Flyers fans that want to see Trevor Zegras here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I still stand fast on the idea that that probably wasn't going to happen anyway. I don't think the money, and not only did I think it wasn't going to happen by the personnel move, but I don't think the money works either. Unfortunately, so for all those who wanted Zegras, I don't think this does too much. But we wish him well to get healthy again. Oh,
No,
but speaking of
absolutely.
getting healthy again, Ovechkin's out there skating in two,
Yes.
like, immediately, almost
Give
immediately
me it.
after for a
Yeah.
fibula break or tibula break.
Maybe
Yeah,
about him a couple of weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I cover the Caps elsewhere, so I'm I'm excited to watch Ovechkin get back on the ice as soon as possible. Although that team's been a tank. Connor McMichael's been excellent this year. One second or third year player, I forget exactly which, but he's been great this year. John Carlson, elite defenseman's been outstanding, and they're getting really good goaltending too. So it's one of those things that we haven't really seen them yet this season. I think one time I think we saw Washington. So should be pretty exciting when
twice.
we match them twice
Twice we saw
already this year.
Washington because we
Oh,
played
that's
them
right. It was a home.
in the
Yeah.
home and home or whatever it was. Yeah.
So we got 2 more times with them. this season. But it's one of those things that if I'm not watching Flyers hockey, if they're not on, it seems like every other night there's a Capitals game for me to cover. So it's never ending. Eric, we've got 5 minutes or thereabouts until the Philadelphia Flyers take on the Florida Panthers. So let's get into our predictions here for the rest of the week until we talk to you guys next week. Once again, shoot another Flyer show live 6 o'clock every Thursday night here. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you can always drop them in the chat. You can leave it on our socials, which you see scrolling there. I worked hard, about 10 minutes, really hard, 10 minutes on that bottom of that scroll to give you the title and to give our socials. So say hi, give us a follow. We love to hear from the lovely ladies and gentlemen that are willing to sit with us for 55 minutes as we talk Flyers hockey. So Florida Panthers 15-9-2, 4-5-1 in their last 10. Eric, I'll start with you. What do you got tonight for the Philadelphia Flyers and the Panthers?
All right. So kind of mirroring the score that it was before. I think it's going to be a 4-3, dare I say, overtime. In overtime, let's talk about it would almost be too easy to go Michkov goal. So let's go Konechny goal. So 4-3 win for the Flyers in overtime, Konechny goal. Along the way there, we're going to have a Forrester point, let's say assist.
Okay, Forrester assist. Flyers playing against the defending Stanley Cup champs. I could see them get to overtime. Not feeling it though. I'm saying Flyers are going to drop this one 4-2.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that. What are we feeling here? Honestly, I think Risto celebrates the Four Nations nomination with a goal tonight. He gets one of the two Flyers goal in a 4-2 loss against the Florida Panthers. 2 nights from now, Flyers ship up to Boston. 14-11-3, third place in the Atlantic. Boston Bruins 6-3-1 in their last 10, but they haven't been the very scary Bruins of old, although they are playing better lately. How are you feeling about the Flyers and the Boston Bruins?
It's going to be another tight game. I think it always pretty much is. Well, actually, it hasn't really necessarily been a tight game this season between the two. It's been a trade-off of shutouts, as a matter of fact. I think both teams end up scoring, but I think it's a low-scoring game. Let's go 2-1, Philadelphia.
Okay.
And so we're extending this streak out in terms of my predictions to a 7-game point streak in a way. This is a game where let's look at the schedule real quick. So Urson should be in goal. So let's say an Urson start. Let's just make that the prediction.
Yeah, you got me on that one. So we're gonna double up on that one because I actually had an Urson shutout.
Okay.
Urson shutout and a 2-0 win up in Boston. Probably isn't gonna happen because we never play well. Sorry, the Flyers never play up in Boston. Well, in Boston, I don't play for the Flyers, so I can't use a we. The Flyers don't play well up in Boston, but I think they're gonna take that change that they did Black Friday against the New York Rangers. Take it up to Boston with them and stick it to the Bruins. There you go. A shutout up in Boston. Flyers then come home and they play the NHL's newest team, the Utah Hockey Club. No name yet, just Hockey Club. 10-11-4, 6th in the Central, 4-5-1 in their last 10 for the Hockey Club. How are you feeling against the Flyers against the Hockey Club?
I like how you say the Hockey Club. There's such like the mad scramble of the goaltenders, I think, catches up to the Flyers here and there. So I think there will be I'm going to go in favor of the Hockey Club on this one. A 3-2 win, maybe an empty net goal. So it could be, I'll say this, it could be a 4-2 win for the Hockey Club based on whoever scores the empty net goal. But it's a back-to-back. I don't know that Fedotov starts. See, got it right this time.
He did.
So, with 3 goaltenders out there, you might give Fedotov the night off. It might be Kolosov start. So let's put Kolosov in there as a prediction of who starts. I could be wrong, could be right.
You could. I have a Kolosov game as well, and I have a Matvei Michkov goal, and a very happy, joyous 5-2 win over the Utah Hockey Club for the Philadelphia Flyers. Final game of the week before we chat with you fine folks again. We'll be at Columbus. 11-10-3, a 6-3-1 in their last 10, and what is bound to be a heartbreaking, very tough night. The first time the Flyers and the Columbus Blue Jackets meet up since this summer. How are you feeling on a road against the Metro Division opponent in the Columbus Blue Jackets?
It's going to be a very, like you nailed it, it's going to be a very emotional game. I do think, this one goes in overtime. I think if it does go into overtime, I'm going to side with Philadelphia. So I'll take the probably a 3-2 win in overtime. I don't think it goes to a shootout, so I will go ahead and say Matvei Michkov goal. Let's put a Farabee goal in this game too.
All right.
So along the way there.
So are you calling the Michkov overtime game winner?
I am because I think that's probably the easiest prop bet in Philadelphia sports right now, outside of a Jalen Hurts tush push. So
if that comes to pass, and you nail that prediction, Matvei Michkov will tie an NHL record with Austin Matthews for the most NHL overtime goals as a rookie with 4. Heard in 2017. Not a bad guy to be up there with. Superstar from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews.
I like the sound of that. So, yeah, then especially go Matvei.
I have the Flyers taking home a win on the road against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think Ursan's back. I think he plays really well in that contest. I'm going to have a Sanheim goal. That's the name that's triggering in my brain right now. So we're going to put it on the sheet here. So Travis Sanheim gets the goal and the Flyers win there. And we both have a very similar record and one that would keep us very happy in Philadelphia, Eric. Yes. 3-1 for the Philadelphia Flyers for both of us next week. For our upcoming prediction segment, it's not sponsored. It could be, just like Wedding Crashers. Could be sponsored. Reach out to us on socials. And
literally anybody. We could do Manscaped. Anybody. Sponsor us.
Anybody but Boston or New York or Dallas. I think that's
honestly, at the end of the day, there's money attached to it. You want to slap a star up there. Unfortunately, I'll take it. So
just after 7:00, they're running their screen images for the Flyers and the Panthers. So we're gonna get out of here in a moment. But Eric, you've got your coverage with Flyers Nation tonight for the Flyers and Panthers. You got Flipping the Birds on Tuesdays and on Saturdays in the evenings here on the YouTube channel. Anything else you've got going on in your world?
Yeah, I know that both of us will have a game thread going on. I'm just going to plug mine real quick. EM Reese at bsky.social. I think I got that right for Blue Sky. And on Twitter or X, whatever you guys want to call it anymore, at Eric Reese FN. That will be where you can find the game threads. I'll be posting them almost simultaneously. Let's see where we're at. So Thursday right now. So Saturday morning. Probably around like 8:30. Just we'll keep up with the posts. We'll be there flipping the birds. So Flipping Birds Pod. That's on X and Twitter. And then you go to Blue Sky's socials account. So it will be flippingthebirds.bsky.social. Think I got it all in there. That's a lot to say. Just replay the video.
Eric Reese will be flipping the posts on Saturday morning, getting everybody ready for the new podcast for the Eagles as they get ready to take on. I know this. Hold on. I cover the team. No. Who are they even playing this week?
The Eagles are playing Carolina Panthers.
There you go. The Carolina Panthers. I know it was somebody that practically didn't matter. The Eagles and the Panthers will play this week. I've got a busy week ahead of me. Special thanks to Philly Sports Network. I had a promotion over the weekend, which was great. Moved to a hybrid lead writer here with the company, which is going to give me an awesome opportunity on Saturday. I'm going to get to cover Philly college basketball at the Big 5 Classic. So I get to cover a couple basketball games. I haven't done that since my college days, 15, 20 years ago. So super stoked for that. And I dropped a piece that I'm really proud of today on Saquon Barkley's MVP bid. The Eagles haven't had an MVP in the NFL in their 92. Well, they've had one MVP in their 92-year history, and they've really only had one running back that's even been in that conversation at all. So the fact of what Saquon Barkley is doing is pretty special. So I had a piece, it clocked in, split it into two because it was over 2,000 words. So I wanted to, make it a little easier, more digestible for the peoples that are reading it. But I was really proud of it, and a really interesting look at the Eagles' history with the award. They were the third team to win it, and then they haven't won it in over 60 years. So check out that piece if you're an Eagles fan and you're hanging with us here, and check in with all of the work. You've got the socials down there. Eric provided his. I got C Babos Writes pretty much everywhere on Twitter and on Blue Sky. So once again, thanks for hanging out with us. We have 120 of you beautiful people here for over an hour. Let's go. And let's go Flyers, Panthers. We've got a game coming up. It's good to have hockey back in South Philadelphia. We hope you guys have a wonderful week.
Want you to bleed for me.